In a recent video, I had shared about how I'd run into my ex-girlfriend for the first time in a year and how it was devastating, in no small part because she's doing really, really well. And how this had brought up all these feelings of shame and inadequacy, and how it had helped me realize that I relied on her in a way to boost my self-esteem, to diffuse some of my shame. Well, a lot has happened since then, both with her in the flesh and with her in my head and in my heart, and I want to catch up. So yeah, that video I had talked about how I'd been crying a lot and, again, quite devastated. But the next day, I began to feel a shift. And the shift was joy, really. Joy for her and appreciation for her. Because as I'd shared, we were together for about 2 years. But when we first met, our very first conversation was me sharing that I wanted a partnership, in no small part because I'd had this realization on a mushroom trip 3 days before I met her, and her sharing that she needed to be alone to face her fear of being alone and to develop more self-confidence and self-reliance since, like many women, and I'd say especially quite attractive women, she had largely been in relationships her entire adult life. And so that first meeting was like, this can't go anywhere, but then we fell in love anyway, et cetera, et cetera. But over that 2 years, she was continually tortured. And I think tortured is not overstating it, by this sense that she was avoiding her own work, that she needed to be alone. Whereas for me, I felt like my work is in partnership because I hadn't been in a deep partnership in 19 years at that point. So this occasion, these continual separations, and then finally, a little bit more than a year ago, to this point, permanent separation. And is it revealing that I say to this point? Does that imply that some part of me holds out hope? Yeah, I'd say it is revealing in that way. But, well, let me get to it, because again, a lot has shifted. So devastating seeing her. But the next day I started realizing, good for her. Because things had panned out exactly the way she had hoped they would pan out. She had found this self-confidence and self-reliance and self-trust. She had cultivated deeper friendships with women, which had been a main objective of hers. Basically, everything she had hoped she would achieve by stepping away from this relationship, and again, note that term, stepping away, that doesn't imply permanence. Very revealing how my mind phrases this stuff, but everything she'd hoped had actually come to fruition. And so appreciation for her and appreciation for her courage, because I would say I'd been in love to this extent once before in my life, the one that had ended 19 years prior, but she never had. Even though she'd been married, she'd never really been totally in love. She didn't know what it was. She thought she'd been in love, but when you experience the depths, you realize that prior things might not have been as deep as you thought they were. And of course, you can extrapolate from that even what I say is totally in love. There's probably depth beyond that. I'm sure there are. But at any rate, this had been the deepest partnership she'd experienced, the deepest love she'd experienced, the best sex she'd experienced. And to step away from all of that, just because you have this persistent sense that you need to be alone, takes a great deal of courage. So yeah, a lot of appreciation for her great courage. And just, happy for her that it had worked out so well for her. And then the next day, the happiness spread to include myself, because I realized, of course, this is for the best, not just for her, but for me. Because if you're in a partnership, I don't believe you can be in a partnership where, it's good for one person, but not good for the other. If it's a true partnership, then both people benefit or both people don't benefit. And clearly, in this case, had she stayed in this relationship, had she ignored her intuition that she needs to be alone, what would have happened? She would have been dissatisfied. She would have felt her growth stunted, and inevitably that would have hurt our relationship and would have led to pain for me. So it was this dramatic shift over a couple of days from being, again, quite devastated that she was doing so well to feeling great relief because it validated the choice for her and for me. Though, it was her choice. She's the one who ultimately ended it. There we go. I said ended. I didn't say stepped away. Great joy for her. And I wrote her an email just expressing my appreciation, expressing all this. But I wrote this email the day I was about to have this high dose mushroom journey, and I had a sense, why don't I wait until the mushrooms to share this? just to see what mushrooms have to say about this. Maybe there's more to be uncovered here. So I didn't send the email, and the mushroom trip, as I shared, was ultimately quite anticlimactic despite a massive 7.5 gram dose. And the trip didn't really shift anything. It just sort of reinforced this sense that, like, yeah, this is for the best for both of us. Well, it did shift one thing. I had the thought on the trip, rather than just send this email, why not tell her this in person? Why not express my admiration and appreciation for her? And so the day after the trip, I reached out, and we got together, and we were just going to go for a walk around a lake near here. But it was windy and cold, and she wanted to get a jacket, and she lived nearby, so we went to her place, and we wound up spending 5 hours together, and it was like old times. Not sexual, but she made dinner for us. We talked. We entered what we always called the universe. And if you've been in love, you know what I'm talking about. This universe that you and your beloved alone inhabit. This sort of place that is almost outside of space and time. That's how it felt. Frankly, it felt like more psychedelic than the experience I'd had the day prior. Just inhabiting this reality that we create together. This magical, wonderful reality that gave us both so much joy. And we were holding each other. We were hugging each other. I would say of those 5 hours, probably a good 50% of it, we were holding each other. And was there some arousal at times? Yes, there was, but I was very clear with myself. Yeah, no, this ended for a very good reason. We don't want to reopen this. And the physical contact itself, non-sexual, was transcendent. I mean, that was part of the thing that really stood out about this relationship, is the comfort we got from each other's presence. We were always touching. Whenever we were in touch distance, we were touching. Driving the car, we'd be holding hands. Walking down the street, our hands would always find each other because it gave us both great comfort, and that's how this felt. And it was also helpful to hear some things from her. One thing she shared, my narrative had been that, well, this ended because she wasn't ready for a partnership, but there were also things specific to me, particularly her concern that I'm not in a good financial position, don't really focus on my career because I go for a lot of hikes. The OCD, while it is much better, can be painful to be around. And as we were talking more, I realized that my narrative that, this was just she wasn't ready, was very convenient. The reality is, for 2+ years, she communicated that she wanted me to focus more on my career, and I want to focus more on my career. For myself, I want to reach more people with my art. And yet I didn't do that. And so that was painful, seeing that, maybe things would have been different. But this is where we are now, and I left feeling like this is wonderful. We could have a friendship. And not just any old friendship. We can have this friendship where we hold each other and touch each other and give each other comfort and are great allies, great supporters, because that was always part of the relationship. I realized that, in fact, the sex was ultimately a very small component of the relationship. The sex, as good as it was it was a small percentage of the time we were together. What distinguished this relationship was everything else, and we can still have everything else. And I felt just buoyant as I was driving home. And then, as I pulled into the driveway, I had a thought. Why not have sex? I mean, what's the harm? We're not going to be in a partnership. That clearly is not in the cards, but why not give ourselves this experience that we both clearly want? I mean, I felt like it was, there was an attraction there. What's the harm? Now that it's clear, this is what I was telling myself. Yeah, in the past, it was always problematic because we would come together, we would, be in love, then we would separate because I wanted a partnership. But now I see clearly that we couldn't have a partnership, that this is better for her to not be in a partnership. So now that I'm clear on that, what's the harm of having sex? Yeah, I know. And I knew the next day, when I woke up the next day, to my surprise, I felt grief, deep grief, because my body knew I can't have that. My body knew that I do love this woman, and that even a friendship just reawakens that love, and that, we can't be in each other's lives now. Or maybe we can still be friends. And I was kind of going back and forth, but it was very clear that, sex not in the question. And then the next day, I actually had to clear out of the place I was staying for like 6 or 7 hours for a specific reason. She lives nearby. I texted her, hey, can I work at your place? And she texted back that I can, but that she's ovulating. And like many women, her sexual desire is at its highest when she is ovulating. It was always sort of an ongoing joke. When she was being really loving towards me, I'd be like, are you ovulating now? So she said she was ovulating and that she was proud that we had kept our clothes on the other night, but that she didn't think it was going to be so easy for her if we saw each other again. And immediately my mind is like, all right, so yeah, we'll have sex. What's the problem? But then also a lot of fear in my body. And what proceeded to happen? For the next 5 hours, I did not go over to her place. I was in my car, but I was talking to her on the phone and we were talking through it. Should we or shouldn't we? We really want to, but it could be harmful for me. I mean, it was very clear that she can handle it. She's in a solid place, but that for me, that was both of our concern. And then getting off the phone with her and talking to other friends and getting their opinions, which universally was don't do it. And then talking to AI. ChatGPT held a hard line. It said, don't do it. And ChatGPT knows me quite well. I've uploaded my entire journals to it. Maybe I'm an idiot, but I do find it to be a very helpful tool. And it was very, very clear this is a terrible idea. This is going to set back your whole process because I do want a partnership. And sort of my argument to ChatGPT was, all right, my friend Michael, whom I'm staying with now, has this great line, which is he says, when do you make the best purchases when you're buying groceries? Well, when you're not hungry, when you go into the grocery store. The analogy being that if you are feeling deprived of sex and touch, you may desperately grasp for any sort of scraps of that. But if you're getting your needs met in that department, you can be more discerning as to whom you actually get with. So I was using that argument with ChatGPT. My argument was that actually having sex with Anna, my ex, would actually make it more likely for me to find the partnership I want with someone else because I won't be so fucking desperate and needy. But ChatGPT wasn't having any of it. So then I started talking to Claude, which does not know me as well. I'm on the free plan, so it hasn't read my journals. And Claude, I convinced that yeah, this is probably for the best. But I went back to ChatGPT. I mean, this is insane. I copy pasted Claude's messages to ChatGPT. It kind of eviscerated them logically and did a very good job of it. And then meanwhile, I'm talking to Anna in between. And finally, I'm just getting this is OCD, by the way. Let's just call it what it is. My OCD is about decision making. And I found myself in a binary decision conundrum. Should I or should I not have sex with my ex-girlfriend? And I was getting more and more tense about this, more and more anxious about it, more and more trapped in my head about it. And so finally, I'm talking to her and I'm like, what? I'm just going to come over. I'm just going to come over. And I didn't say it with excitement or joy. It was almost like a grimness, like, let's just fucking get this done. And to her credit, because she had been very clear that she very much wanted this physically and had no concerns about her ability to handle it emotionally. But to her credit, she said, I don't think that's the best thing for you. Why don't we wait? Let's get off the phone. Why don't you sit with it for like 10 minutes? Damn, this is so fucking beautiful. Yeah, and deserted this time of day. So she said, sit with it. And I did. And I was like, and I texted her, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to come over. And I wish I could say the story ends there, but it doesn't. I kept spiraling. And 10 minutes later, I call her up again and I'm like, I'm just going to come over. And now she's the one who ultimately held the line. She said, deep down, that's not good for you. She said, why don't we do this? Why don't we wait a few days when I'm not ovulating and we can talk more? And that was 10 days ago. Neither of us has reached out to the other because I think we both reached the same obvious conclusion that we can't be in each other's lives now as much as we would both want it. And this does make me appreciate her more. But the most interesting thing to me, well, two things. I woke up the next morning feeling tremendous relief. I was afraid I'd feel regret, like, I should have just gone for it. But I felt tremendous relief. Thank God we did not sleep together. Just so much. And then the most surprising thing is, as I shared in my previous video, For the past year, there's been a lot of not letting her go in my head, having imaginary conversations with her, imagining scenarios with her. But since that night, the last 9 days, there's been almost none of that. I've been thinking about her very little. Not none, as evidenced by recording a video about her now, but no, this video is about me. But very little. I felt a lot of peace around it. In fact, the most peace around it I've felt since this ended. And I don't know what to make of that exactly. Did it give me some sense of finality? I don't know. Or at an ego level, this has also occurred to me, the fact that she does want me, physically, sexually, maybe takes out some of the sting of rejection. The fact that I could have her if I wanted to. But I don't think it's primarily that. I don't know what it is. I guess it's, yeah. And I'd be lying if I said finality a moment ago, but I think a part of me still has some hope. But yeah, I'm just thinking about her a lot less. And that's a tremendous relief, because that does leave room for someone new. But I mean, I don't know. I have a feeling that may not be on the horizon for a while. It leaves room for myself. A dear friend of mine, Marisa, we were talking about this, and she referred to it as energy leakage, just having these imaginary conversations, engaging with someone who's not actually there. And that really landed for me. So yeah, it's interesting, because I was so adamant about us not having contact for a year, because I thought I needed to do that to get over her. But somehow having this contact seems, it's only been 9 days, to have helped a lot more. So I don't know what the future brings, but I'm not worried about it. And that's the greatest relief of all right now. And I feel like at this point I should turn the camera around so you're not just looking at my yammering head and getting some of what I'm getting. This is Muir Woods, blissfully deserted on a late afternoon in May.